Don't let this happen to you.
Me no
I
pay.
got time today, my boy. You gotta pay.
Huh?
You gotta pay.
No, me no pay.
Oh, you? No, you gonna pay.
In this video, we're going to talk to you all about how to avoid a repossession, what to do after a repossession if your car is taken away, and also what steps to take if you co-signed on an auto loan and it's about to be repossessed. Let's get right into it. Let's go into some basics. Hiding a car to avoid repossession, what you should know. In most states, your vehicle can be repossessed the moment you default on your loan or lease. It's really a nice gesture when auto loan companies, finance companies, when they essentially decide to come get your car after 2 to 3 to 4 month consecutive of monthly late payments. Okay, so that's usually pretty standard, but they can come get it, as soon as you are being late. They're just being a little bit nice. Okay, in many states, all it takes to trigger the repossession process is a default on your loan. For those who don't know what that means, that's just essentially meaning that you were being late or you were promised to make a payment, but essentially you missed multiple payments. That's usually what it ends up taking. Okay. Next, the harder you make it for the repo man or woman, the more they are going to charge the bank. Okay. So for those who don't know, repossession, the people that actually come and take the vehicle, right? The tow truck drivers and such, they kind of set a rate that's pretty standard across, depending on what state they're in and such. But they actually work directly with the finance companies, and some of them actually work directly with dealerships. Some of them don't represent a company. Some of them are self-employed and they just have their own company and they build those relationships. Short version is, the harder you make it for the repo people, the more expensive it's going to end up being. Next, knowing the laws of your jurisdiction is crucial before you do anything. I'm going to be honest, we're not going to touch on too much of that to do after something like that happens, if it happens. Next, it is a crime to intentionally hide your car to avoid repossession.
As car payments become more expensive than ever, tonight 1 in 6 buyers who finance new are paying more than $1,000 a month. The staggering price to sit behind the wheel, rivaling the cost of putting a roof over your head.
And last but not least, in most states, a creditor may legally enter your property to repossess the vehicle. If your bank is calling you saying they're going to come repossess the car, you're getting letters in the mail, all this other stuff, number one, don't panic, okay? Here's what you got to understand is that most banks are not looking to take the car. You've just put them in position where that's the final option, okay? So you can work something out with them, and we'll talk more about what those options are right now, okay? You have to decide if you're going to save the vehicle. Now, there are some people that let their cars get repossessed for various reasons. They got the car totaled and they didn't have, they got into a car accident, the car got totaled, or it had a lot of damage, and then they, for whatever reason, they didn't have gap coverage, okay? Which, if you don't know that essentially means gap coverage essentially means that it's going to cover the difference between what the bank is going to say, hey, that this vehicle's actually worth. That usually comes from the insurance company once they do an appraisal. And then, or they sometimes look at the Kelley Blue Book. There's a lot of various ways that they do it, but they essentially put a value on your vehicle. And then if you owe more than what the vehicle's actually worth, then that gap coverage is usually going to cover that difference, or essentially that gap. Okay. If you don't have gap coverage, then what ends up happening is that you don't get, you essentially have to make up that difference on your own. So some people let a repossession happen like that. Some other people may have a repossession, if they can't afford repairs, like if the car is not running or whatever. There's no valid reason. Okay. I'm just saying why people end up doing what they end up doing. And so either way, if the car is if you can actually save it, right? Which means that you can actually continue to keep making the monthly payments. And you say, you know what are my options? Number one is going to be calling the bank. Call the bank and see if they're going to let you if they're going to be able to put you on some type of payment arrangement, some type of payment plan, some type of hardship. You'd be surprised. A lot of banks have a lot of different types of programs because, again, they would rather not hire a repossession company, a tow truck driver, looking for your car. They'd rather not have to do all that. They would much rather say, hey, listen, let's work something out together and what works best for you. Real quick, if you haven't done so already, be sure to download our free ebook. You can actually scan this QR code or you can click the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Now keep in mind, a lot of finance companies won't even try to come get the vehicle after one missed payment. They'll start calling you and things of that sort. So you do have a nice window, okay? Now I'm not saying stretch that window out because as you just read that they can come and get it anytime they want, but most finance companies won't do it after a month. They're usually going to wait to after 2 to 3 months, but that gives you enough time to say, hey bank, what are my options? What can we do? What can we work out? And then here's another thing too. Sometimes after missing one payment, you know if you're going to be in a position where you can't make the second payment or the third payment. This is a great opportunity for you to say, okay, let me see if I can get a personal loan to pay off this vehicle. Let me see if I can refinance this car, right? What are all my options? I'm going to go over some other options as well, too. Now, you may have already gone through the process of the repossession where they've taken the car already, okay? Now, I call this lucky if they have declared that as a loss. If they declare that car as a loss, like the actual repossession itself, what ends up happening is they're going to actually send you a tax form. Usually it's around tax season, and they're going to give you what they call a 1099-C. A 1099-C is essentially saying, hey, we need you to count that repossession as income on your taxes simply because we decided to write that off as a loss. So if we took that as a loss, we're now going to count that in our books as an expense. And so we need you to count this as income. And yes, that will essentially count towards like you having like a part-time spare time job or something like that, Uber or something, as an example, right? Because some people have small businesses or they do a side hustle and then every year they claim that money. That repossession could potentially do that, but this can only happen if they declare that as a loss. Next, let's talk about voluntary versus involuntary. So sometimes I've heard people say, well, you know what? If I give the car back to the bank, then it won't affect my credit score the same way as if I were to let them come and take it. Here's the deal. It's going to be the exact same way as far as the impact to your credit report. Involuntary versus voluntary is really just the status. So they're going to put on your credit report how the repossession happened, not what they had to go through to get it, but essentially if they had to take it from you or essentially if you made an arrangement for it to be picked up, which by the way, that is a good strategy, especially if you are, let's say, for example, you're going to be late. You don't have to be late in order to, make an arrangement like a voluntary repossession. So voluntary repossession is essentially you calling the bank and saying, hey, listen, I can't afford this car. Can you just come pick it up? Now, that does not mean that it's still not a repossession. It will be a repossession, but you just save yourself a lot of money. You save yourself at minimum the tow fees. You save yourself credit score points just from multiple late payments, but you still do have to wait in order for the vehicle to be sold at the auction. Just because they pick it up on Monday doesn't mean it's going to get sold at the auction on Tuesday. They still have to like it, run through numbers, and sometimes that could take time. That may even cost you a month. But either way, just know that no matter which way they actually do the repossession, it's going to be on your credit report as such, and it's still going to hurt you either way. Next, like I said earlier, banks want to work something out. Banks are not in the business of keeping cars. They're not in the business of keeping houses. They don't want the asset. They honestly don't. They have been put in a position by the person that's paying them, which might be you or someone that you know, or someone watching this video, right? And unfortunately, they're in a position where if they're at the last resort, they have to come and take the car, right? However, keep in mind, like I said, if you call them, you would be surprised. I've seen on many of my clients, when I've looked at their credit reports and created custom game plans for them, I've noticed that they had some type of an arrangement with the auto loan company. I said, man, what is this? They said, oh, well, I have a payment plan arrangement with them. Even though it was still showing up late, they were essentially not getting the car. So make sure that even if you do set something up with the bank, make sure you have a conversation with them about when those payments are going to show up. Just because they make a payment arrangement with you does not mean that it's going to show up on time, on your credit report. That means, let's say, for example, you're a month behind, right? That has now hit your credit report. Now you got that late payment. Now you're saying, okay, let me go ahead and call the bank. Let me see if I can make an arrangement with them. Just because you make an arrangement with them, if that payment schedule still does not line up with 30 days on your credit report, you do have an arrangement with them and you do save the car. Great job. However, that does not mean that it will show up on your credit report as an on-time payment. So just make sure you ask that question as well too. Not just, hey, can we work something out? Make sure that it's going to show up on your credit report a certain way. Otherwise, it may not be worth putting it together in general, the payment structure or whatever you guys agree to. Next is going to be the auction process. So in short, it works like this. They pick up the car, or you make an arrangement for them to pick up the car. They then typically they take it to some type of pound or some type of an arrangement. I've even seen it where sometimes they'll take it to an automaker, just so sometimes they could confirm that they did get the right car. Either way, then there's a transition where the car then goes to an auction. Once it goes to the auction, then it's going to get sold. Okay. Now, here's where the numbers are going to be crucial. You may owe more than what the car is worth. For example, you may owe $10,000, but then let's say, for example, it gets sold at the auction for $6,000. Then plus all the fees, they're going to subtract that essentially from the actual value, right? From what they was able to get from it. Then they hit you, let's just say they hit you with a bill, right? Of $4,000. That's better than having 10,000, right? But then this is where a lot of people give up. They say, well, of course, now you could just ignore it and just say, hey, I'm not going to pay that. But you have to understand that every state has legal ramifications. And in most cases, if you promised to borrow money and you did not pay it back, you will be legally liable. That's the short version. Now, there's a couple gray areas in different states and stuff like that, what they can do, what they can't do, and things of that sort. But here, I would say do not bank on that, okay? You have to do the due diligence yourself and find out what makes sense to you. But at the end of the day, most of the time, I would say 80% of the time, people don't get taken to court for repossessions. They typically just put it on the credit report. It ends up being a charge off and people just move on. Okay. I myself had a repossession on my 21st birthday. I know, insane. We'll talk about that in a second when we watch some of these videos. But either way, I myself had a repossession on my 21st birthday. Looked outside and the car was gone. So I know the feeling. I know what it's like. And it's worse for me, I think. I actually paid them the money I owed them a day before they took it, but I did it over the weekend. So the tow truck company was still scheduled to come out and pick up my car. I used to park it around the corner and I used to look outside the window because I could see around the corner. And this is, in my personal opinion, this is back before repo people were so aggressive. I'm sure they would see that it was around the corner and then say, okay, it wasn't at this house, because nobody really wants to take it from someone, right? Let's be honest. Nobody really wants to put someone in a position, taking something from someone's family, because they know it's going to put them in a position. But nowadays it's like, hey, they're getting crafty at it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come get this car. But either way, I know that feeling. And listen, they most definitely want to work something out with you to avoid that auction process. But either way, you owe the money, right? And so now you have to decide what you want to do. You still can make a payment arrangement. You could do a settlement, on that. You could do a lot of different things, if you want to do that. Because here, if you're looking to go into homeownership and you try to get it disputed, you try to go to the best credit repair person in the world, you try to listen to somebody crazy on YouTube, which they say, hey, borrow thousands of dollars, don't pay it, and then this is what you need to do to get it removed. Listen, there's so much technology that's coming out right now, because a lot of these people are not on the mortgage side of things. When they're about to let you borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars, they can still see that you have some of this stuff. They can see all the stuff that has to do with the state. So especially if it ends up going to court, so they can see a lot of these things. I'm saying that to say that you may have to do something about it. When you go into homeownership, it will affect your buying power. Okay. And again, this is here. It's not the end of the world. You still can go into homeownership. You still can get another car. You still can get an apartment, but it's all about how you build your credit afterwards. That's what matters the most, which, by the way, if you haven't done so already, make sure you guys go ahead and download this free ebook right above here. You can scan this QR code and grab my free ebook today. Also, if you need help improving your credit score, scan this QR code so I can take a look at your credit report and create a custom game plan for you, like I've done the rest of these clients right over here. All right, now let's talk about what happens if the repossession has happened. Okay. First, there's a few things you have to understand. Number one, there are a lot of dealerships near you that specifically have banks, okay, that work with people that have bad credit, repossession, so on and so forth. If you want to find those types of dealerships, okay, it's 100% free. All you have to do is scan this QR code right here, and it's going to take you to bad credit auto loan dealerships that have the banks, they have the inventory near you. Okay. Now, Like we talked about a couple seconds ago, it will show up as a charge off on your credit report. What can you do about that? Obviously, you can dispute it, try your best to try to get it removed. I say try your best because I'm not one of those YouTubers where people say, hey, this is guaranteed to come off. That's not the case. People cannot control whether it's going to come off or not. There's a series of actions that may lead to a removal, yes. But if that doesn't happen for you, then we have to talk about what that strategy is going to end up being, okay? Also, finding out what your state laws are just to make sure that none of those were broken during that entire repossession process. Because if you can show that some of these laws were not followed, then they not only will it get removed, but you may be grounds to actually take someone to court or some type of lawsuit. This is usually rare because they end up following most of the procedures, but you still want to double check it just to make sure. And you could just Google it. Just type in, the state that you live in, repossession laws. And then if you feel like reading all that stuff and just looking for the violations, but like I said, listen, this is very simple. If we pay them, we keep the car. If we make an arrangement, we keep the car. If we let them take the car, it's not the end of the world. Let's just build around it. And here's how you do that. It's not the end of the world, but like I said, it's all about the strategy after the car has been taken. So now the next thing that you need to do, once you scan this QR code, find the dealerships that have the right inventory, that have the right finance companies that can help you. Okay. Once you do that, even if you don't do that, there's a bank called Credit Acceptance. Now, hold on. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about credit acceptance. Here's what you got to understand. Once you have a repossession on your credit report, you have slim options, especially if you don't have a cosigner. It's going to be hard for banks to trust you. So if you just had a recent repossession, again, you have slim options. Let's move past it. This is what we need to do. Now, Credit Acceptance is one of the few companies that will allow you to get an auto loan while the repossession is still happening. So this is how it works. Yes, they take the car from you, but keep in mind, you have about a 30 to 45 day window before that repossession updates on your credit report. That time frame is crucial. So here's what you need to do right now. You need to, number one, like I said, scan a QR code, or you can start calling different dealerships around you if you feel like doing that, and start seeing what type of banks they have. This particular bank, Credit Acceptance, is one of the few banks. There's a couple of other banks as well too, like Regional Acceptance and maybe Exeter, Santander, a lot of unpopular banks. But a lot of people have to understand, once you put yourself in that position, it's not a lot of options, but it's not about what bank gives you the loan, because it's either that or pay cash, right? And then some people say, well, Calvin, some people just need to pay cash. Some people do need to just pay cash, especially if they have, a history and a habit of just not paying, things on time, right? Auto loans may not be your thing, but if you're saying, okay, I just need to be responsible, let me put it on auto pay. Let me pay this twice a month instead of it coming out my account like that. Let me increase my income. There's a lot of different things that lead to a repossession. We're not here for that. We're more so saying, hey, listen, this is the bank you need to go to or similar, because they will allow you to have an auto loan while you have an open auto loan. Okay. So an open auto loan is essentially an auto loan that is not closed out or traded off. Okay. And while that's on your credit report, most banks, like regular banks like Ally, Bank of America, Chase, Fifth Third, Capital One, you name it, all the auto loan companies, they're going to want you to trade in the car. If they took the car via repossession, you can't trade in something you don't have. So which means that you're going to get instantly denied from a lot of those banks. Credit Acceptance and similar banks, they see what that is, and they're going to say, hey, listen, we're not even expecting you to trade this vehicle in, but of course we got to make our money. Here's this high interest rate, right? That's really all it is. It's just honestly, it's just a high interest rate on an older car, but you don't necessarily have to get an older car. Any car technically qualifies for Credit Acceptance, but the numbers work out better when the car is a little bit older, like 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. Okay. Number two, be prepared to put some money down. Okay. Many of these programs are going to want some type of skin in the game, at least $1,000, $1,500. The more, the better. But I would say no, about $1,500, $2,000. Anything more than that, they're making money on the back end, which I don't have time to go into today, but try to keep the most amount of money in your pockets. So when you go to the dealership and they say, hey, how much do you have down? Say you have 500, even though you have 1,500. Let's see what 500 gets, right? Some of you all just give out all the information. You have $1,500. You tell them you got $1,500. They show you a car with $2,000 down. Now you end up picking a car that you need $2,500. Now you got to borrow money. Listen, tell them less than what you have. That way you can see what that does. And then when the numbers change, then you'll be prepared in advance. Okay. And not saying that that's always the case, but you want to most definitely make sure you're looking out for yourself. Okay. Now, once you get that car, you then want to go into refinancing. You typically can refinance an auto loan, I would say within about 12 to 18 months. Now, most banks want you to at least keep the car for at least a month. In some cases, if the numbers work out perfectly, then you could potentially trade it in about a year. But usually it takes a little bit longer because, again, with high interest rate auto loans or high interest rates in general, what ends up happening is a lot of that money at the beginning goes to the bank. Okay. More of the monthly payment, majority of that monthly payment, over half of that monthly payment goes directly to the bank just for interest and such. And then over time, when you get into that 18-month, 2-year window, 3-year window, that's when it really starts to go hammering in deeper into the principal. So this is why when you've had a car, for a while and you have a high interest rate, what's a high interest rate? Honestly, anything over 10%. But when you start going into like banks like Credit Acceptance and such, you're lucky if you get 15 to 20%. It's usually going to be anywhere between 20 to 30%, depending on how high the states allow for those interest rates to be. And so I would start throwing extra money at that, or be prepared to put some money to the side if you want to trade that out of that vehicle or end up refinancing. Those are some other options as well too. Is that, again, other banks will require you to trade the other car in, but you don't have it anymore. Now that you have now gotten another car, now you can start out fresh. You still got that repossession on your credit report. Now you can show the banks that, hey, listen, I've made multiple payments on time with this new auto loan. I know I had the repossession in the past, but essentially this is the new me, right? New car, new me, right? But either way, now that you've shown that, now you could potentially trade that vehicle in and you're going to be upside down. What does that mean? It goes back into the similar situation that we were talking about with the auction. Upside down is the same thing, right? You end up owing more than what the car is actually worth, especially if you have a high interest. So expect to put money down again on the trade-in, or expect to overly pay for the car. I don't recommend you do that just because you say, hey, Calvin, I don't even want to trade this car in. I like this car. I'm going to keep it for the entire term. That's not smart, especially if you have a high interest. What you want to do is, if that's your jam, you at least want to try to see if you can get a personal loan that's going to cover that. And essentially, let's say, for example, you get a car that's, let's say, $20,000. You've paid on it for now 3 years with this high interest rate. Now it should qualify for something. And what I mean by that is the equity should be close to what you owe. Okay. What you owe should be close to what it's actually worth. You try to trade that in. They say, hey, listen, your car is now worth, $15,000. You try to trade it in and they say, well, your car is worth $10,000, but you owe $15,000, right? And so now you either have to put down $5,000 or get a car with a rebate of any new car. And used cars have rebates. Some used cars have rebates as well. If you're buying the auto brand from the automaker, like if you're buying a BMW from a BMW dealership, if you're buying a Chevy from a Chevy dealership, sometimes they have, used car rebates. But either way, you can apply that rebate towards your negative equity. So let's say, for example, again, you owe $15,000 on your car. Your car is worth $10,000. You look at a new car that has a $2,000 rebate. So now your negative equity goes from $5,000 minus 2, that now equals $3,000. And now you could probably just put down $1,500 and carry over the rest. The higher your credit score is, and that's going to allow you to carry over that negative equity. This is why some people have said, oh, I never had to put money down. That's because their credit scores were over 680, 720. Money down is not necessarily, mandatory sometimes. It just really depends on the situation. But if you're out of a repossession, or if you know you got a repossession, or you can't trade in an open auto loan, or if your credit score is low, then expect for that process to be the same. And like I said, the credit score is going to be better before the repossession. So again, take advantage of that small window. It's only 30 to 45 days. So make sure and see if you want to say, listen, I'm going to go ahead and trade this in. I'm going to get a personal loan to pay this off and get a better rate. Okay. However you want to do it, just make sure that you have a plan and a strategy, because you do not want to keep that new auto loan that you just got. You don't want to keep that for the entire term. Again, you want to find that good window of when to trade that vehicle in, or decide what you want to do in general, maybe potentially with a personal loan. Real quick, if you haven't done so already, be sure to download our free ebook. You can actually scan this QR code, or you can click the link in the description below. Now back to the video.